Hey guys, what's going on, and welcome to today's video for Legends of Runeterra, where we're going to be going over the new champion Aphelios. More specifically, we're going to be looking at 5 different decks where you can play Aphelios, and he feels like a good champion. Now granted, Aphelios is a good champion in my opinion, so he's going to feel good in pretty much every deck. But we have 5 decks here where I really like the card. Just a quick disclaimer before we look at all the decks. I'm not saying I think every single deck here is very competitively viable. They're just all fun and they can do what they're trying to do relatively well. However, that's not to say that I don't think any of these are competitively viable. I think a couple of these are actually fairly good in the meta and might even be tier 1 in the future because Aphelios is just that strong. So, with that all said and done, let's go and start looking at the decks. First off, we got up first, a take on an old favorite. We got Aphelios Lee Sin. We also are playing Veiled Temple. Now, Aphelios Lee Sin is playing very similar to pretty much every other Lee Sin deck out there. Yeah, pretty much just install, playing spells every now and again. And then you make a really big Lee Sin and you level him up, and then he does his job and he wins you the game right then and there. By playing Aphelios over something like Zoe, we're able to actually cut Zenith Blade from the deck. I don't know if I like the cut of Zenith Blade. I've seen some people say that you should still play Zenith Blade. I've seen other people say the opposite. I kind of agree with the people saying you shouldn't play it because Aphelios has a weapon that gives Overwhelm for the turn, which can be used like a Zenith Blade pretty much. Also, we play Veiled Temple. Veiled Temple, if you don't know what it does, is a 4-mana landmark that when you play 2 cards for the first time that round, you get to refill 2 mana. Keyword is just 2 mana, not 2 spell mana or anything. It gives you real mana too. And it gives you +1/+1 to your strongest unit, including champions that's currently on the field. Usually this is going to be Lee Sin, but if you hit something like Aphelios as well, that's pretty nice because of his quick attack when he levels up. But besides that, the deck is pretty much just a Lee Sin deck. Plays very similar to pretty much any other Lee Sin deck. We have Lunari Duskbringer in the deck as well. Helps out the early game. It gives you... I forgot the name of the card. The Petal. That discounts Nightfall cards by 1 for that turn. The first one you play that turn. So it lets you play Aphelios on turn 3 relatively often. And it also gives you some discard fodder for Vacy Sketcher. It's also a burst speed spell for Lee Sin. So it's just nice overall. In my opinion, I have no idea whether this is better than Lee Sin Zoe. I'm not sure what I think. I like it. Definitely not a fully optimized list at the moment. Maybe we should only be playing 2 denies, or sorry, 2 demeditations, more denies, more sonic waves. Maybe we should be playing the Fang. Don't know, but this is a good start. I would recommend it if you're looking to play just some more. You like Lee Sin, you want to play some more Lee Sin, but you also want to play Aphelios. Some people also are playing Aphelios Lee Sin without the temple as well, so to fit in more spells, which is also a very nice idea. Take it however you want. You can build this deck however you want, really, in my opinion. Very versatile list, if you will. Now, next up, we got another deck. We got Aphelios Victor coming up next. Victor got a buff, so people were trying out Victor again. He still has a lot of the problems that Victor has. He's very slow, he's kind of clunky, he's a little fragile in terms of his body. 4 health is not that much. But he starts to get his augment going quicker and his skills going quicker because now he gives you a hex score when you play him as well. Again, we got Aphelios in here just because Aphelios is good. Kind of like Zoe. Think of Aphelios like Zoe, just a good solid card. And Aphelios is just so versatile. Thanks to things like Calibrum, you get removal. Severum gives you lifesteal for the turn. Crescendum helps you find cards from your deck and play them right away. Just a really, really nice card. And then you have like Gravitum to stun. Insanely great. This card, or this deck, got a little of a mid-range feeling to it. The one issue I've noticed with this deck is it kind of has a problem actually closing out and winning the game. So we have Eclipse Dragons for that. Unless you get really lucky with Victor. If you get lucky with Victor and get like a nice spell shield and then maybe elusives, sure, you can close out the game with Victor that way, but it's a little tough. Besides that though, pretty simple deck. Just play on curve a lot of the time. You got some nice removal here. Ballistic bots giving you ignitions to rummage away. Pretty nice. Fangs help you out by just giving you a little lifesteal along with the star shaping. Really great card too, Fangs is. And a pretty solid deck. Been doing pretty decent in Masters, this deck has. So maybe this deck is a solid tier 2 deck. I have no idea. I'm not the biggest fan of it. Not really more of my play style. I'm more of a control player. This is more mid-range. But it's a solid deck. Next up, though, we have Aphelios Diana. This is for the aggro fans out there. Basically, we took the really old Diana Nocturne deck, which has kind of just disappeared because Nocturne's kind of a bad card, and we put in Aphelios instead of Nocturne. And like I said earlier, thanks to Aphelios' great versatility, you have things like Calibrum to remove stuff, Gravitum to stun things and push more damage through, and also thanks to Crescendum, we can fetch, we can grab Sky Shadow from the deck, and we get our mana back too because of how Sky Shadows work. You can really be aggressive with this deck. Pretty standard Nightfall aggro deck in all honesty. There's a Cygnus here in the late game to help you out. You can add in some atrocities, if you will, as well. But pretty solid, like any Nightfall deck, Nightfall aggro deck specifically. Managing your mana and just knowing exactly what to cast when and thinking about your turns through and your next upcoming turn or two is very important. Or else you might run into the problem, and that problem is you will just have to miss a turn or two. Still though, I really like this deck. If you are looking for an aggro deck that plays Aphelios, this is it. Sure, Pale Cascade has been nerfed. It's still a really good card. Cycling through the deck, helping out combat, it's just so insane. As for how viable this deck is, I don't know. I honestly legitimately think this is a solid, at the very minimum, tier 2 deck. I don't know if I would say this is the exact list that I would say is the list to play. I think there needs to be a couple more considerations, maybe even add another 2-drop like the elusive Lunari, the 2-mana 2/3 Nightfall elusive, give itself elusive. Maybe that's a consideration. Maybe atrocity is a consideration. Maybe some invokes, like big invokes like star shaping, even though that's a little slow and clunky. Still though, I like the deck. Feels really, really strong. But time will only tell as to how real this deck is. Next deck up, a classic. A classic in, or it's starting to become a classic. We have a Zoe Invoke deck. Built around the Zoe Diana list. We have removed Diana, added Aphelios, and we have also added Veiled Temple. Now this deck I really like Veiled Temple in over the Lee Sin deck. I like the Lee Sin deck too, running Veiled Temple, but this deck I really like the Veiled Temple in. Veiled Temple is probably going to hit Fangs a lot of the time in this deck. It's always like Fangs and Aphelios are two of the stronger units. The tiebreaker would be mana cost if I remember correctly. So Fangs will get the buff if you have both Aphelios and Fangs on the field, and then... Actually, no, Aphelios is a 3/3 and Fangs is a 3/2 if I remember correctly. Never mind what I was saying. Aphelios would get the block, or the buff. But if Fang gets the buff, then you start to grow a big life stealer, and just keep going after that. But still, outside of that, this is a pretty standard Invoke deck. If you haven't played the Invoke list, it's pretty much exactly what it says on the label. You play early on cards to slow your opponent down, maybe get in a little bit of chip damage, and then you start using your Invoke cards, Mountain Scryers, Solari Priestesses, and Star Shapings to get some big invokes, and then you use Atrocity to close out the game if you need it. You also have Eclipse Dragon for a little extra late game, but it's still a really nice deck. You're pretty much always going to Nightfall Eclipse Dragon, almost never Daybreak Eclipse Dragon in this deck, unless you have something like Destroyer or whatever. But still, I think this deck is legitimately a tier 2, possibly even a tier 1 deck. I don't think it's tier 1, but I wouldn't be surprised if I saw a deck that plays Zoe Aphelios as a tier 1 deck. It just feels so good. Maybe change around a couple of the numbers on the cards, maybe more guiding touches, maybe less Pale Cascades, less Hushes. Hush is still a really good card, even though it's been nerfed. It's still so powerful. You kind of just need it to because, well, first off, other Zoes are a thing. And second off, Fizz and the Elusives are still very popular. Granted, Fizz TF does still kind of beat Elusives hard, but thanks to Aphelios, the matchup's not that bad because Aphelios can give you Graviton to slow him down, Calibrum to just kill the Burblefish or the Zap, and Crescendum just to get on the board a little bit with the Mountain Goat, and Severum just to gain you a little bit of life. Again, Aphelios is just such a good card. Next up, we have my personal favorite deck. I don't think this is the strongest deck here. I think the strongest deck we have talked about today is either Zoe Aphelios or Aphelios Diana. But next up, we have my favorite deck, and that is Aphelios Karma. There are so many versions of this deck that I have tried out. I have tried out the list we're looking at now, which I think is the strongest list. I have tried out a list with even more late game, which I ran into the problem of my hand just being too full. I have tried out a version with Veiled Temple. I have tried out a version with Messenger's Sigils and the new card, the Bone. I can't remember the exact name of it. The if you behold the Messenger, give your Celestials +1/+1 everywhere. I do think this deck is fairly powerful. Every time I was playing this deck, whatever variant of it, except for the Messenger version, that was more of a meme. But all of these lists that I played, the Karma Aphelios brews I've played, they felt like Zoe Karma, but better. Because of Aphelios, really. Sure, you don't get on the board as quickly as Zoe does. And that's fine. We're not trying to get on the board quickly. We're just trying to stall our opponents and have our superior late game, which is Karma, take over the game. That's not to say we can't get out late game. We can get out late game by decks such as Anivia and other decks such as Aurelion Sol. I haven't played much Aurelion Sol. I think the meta has sped up enough that Aurelion Sol is starting to get pushed out a little bit. Who knows, in a week though, the meta might do a complete 180 and slow down and Aurelion Sol's viable again. But between the Grand Plaza nerf and the Targon nerfs, we haven't seen much Aurelion Sol, like Aurelion Sol Zoe. Still though, as for this deck plays a lot of new cards and even cards that weren't really being played before but have gotten buffed, specifically Homecoming. So we have like 3 Gifts Beyond. This just is pretty much here to, well, activate Aphelios. Some decks, one of the lists I was playing plays the 1-mana 2/1 Lunari, the Lunari Shadestalker? Duskbringer? I can't remember the name of her. She gives you the 1-mana burst speed spell to make a Nightfall card cheaper. Some people play that. Some people like to play Gifts from Beyond as your Nightfall activator for Aphelios. Eye of the Dragon and Mountain Goat. I like the 2 of Mountain Goat because, in my opinion, I feel like you should play at minimum 4 units in the 2-drop slot for Aphelios and his Crescendum. Karma here, of course, as well for just your late game. Karma plus doubled spells is just crazy good. 1 of Mina. I'm not sure how much I like this. In theory, she's good against mid-range decks, helps you stabilize. But she's a little awkward in the meta. Like, you'd use a Mina against a Zap Spray, or sorry, a Fizz TF deck, and it's like, cool, you've bounced back 0-mana Burblefishes and some Zaps or whatever, or even a TF, and they'll just blue card you, or they'll replay the Zap and draw another card and whatever. We also have Fangs in here because Fangs is just nuts. 4-mana 3/2 with Lifesteal that draws you a card. Yeah, it's not technically drawing a card from your deck, but you get what I'm saying. It replaces itself. We got Sonic Waves in the deck because those are mostly just here to deal with problematic units because our removal suite's kind of lacking, in all honesty. Our removal is just, what, Sunburst, and Aphelios is, it's not Gravitum. I can't believe I've forgotten. I was talking about it earlier, but it is 2-mana deal 3 to whatever. Calibrum? Yeah, it's Calibrum. That's it, I think. And then the rest of the deck is pretty self-explanatory. Eye of the Dragon, just a great Ionia card. Solari Priestess gives you some good mid-game. Got our counterspell suite here of Denies and Nopifies. 2 Homecomings. I first started with 3 of this card. The problem with this card was it was just a little too clunky, but I like 2. I would say at least 1 is good. 2 is really nice as well, but it might be a little too clunky, but I've gotten some insane value out of this Homecoming buff. You might say, why was it played at 5 mana? Again, it's just 5 mana was a lot. 4 mana is still a lot, but it's a little bit better. It has definitely saved me. I've used Homecoming on things like Golden Sister to bounce Golden Sister back to my hand, replay the Golden Sister, get the Silver Sister, insane amounts of value. Used it on something like Solari Priestess and Fangs as well. Just a really nice card. The 2 Sunburster here are just kind of like an, oh no, I really need to kill that thing my opponent played. Basically, it's a champion that I need to kill. As for the rest of the deck, what else have we got that I haven't talked about? Hush, because like it helps our Fizz TF matchup, same as Sonic Wave, and it's just a good card still. And Concussive Palm is just a good card. Concussive Palm also has really nice synergy with Homecoming. We can bounce back the, I think it's Claws of the Dragon? It might be Tail of the Dragon, actually, now that I think about it. I think it's Tail of the Dragon. We can bounce back the unit from Concussive Palm is what I'm talking about, back to our hand, and it will turn back into Concussive Palm, and we can replay it again as well for more value. Really solid deck. Late game is your standard Ionia Karma deck of play Karma and use her spell, her Insight of Ages spell to get a lot of random spells, or use Star Shaping when she's leveled up and get a really big Celestial and win the game that way, or maybe play Cosmic Inspiration, give everything +4/+4 thanks to Karma, and win the game that way. Really nice deck. My favorite deck out of all these decks. I've played it a lot. I love it. It's a really slow deck, though. Anyway, though, that is all for today. That is 5 decks, I believe. We've talked about Aphelios Lee, Aphelios Victor, Aphelios Diana, Aphelios Zoe, and Aphelios Karma. All of them are pretty solid decks. All of them have been played in Masters to some success. So I would recommend each and every one of them. Just pick one which goes more towards your playstyle. If you're an aggro player, try out the Aphelios Diana deck. You're a control player, try out this Aphelios Karma. Mid-range, Aphelios Victor, or maybe Aphelios Zoe. And if you want to play combo, of course, we got Aphelios Lee Sin. Anyway, though, that's going to be it. If you have any decks that you've been playing that are also playing Aphelios, I would love to hear about them down in the comments below, because I love Aphelios. He's probably one of my favorite champions now. I really, really like this guy. He's so versatile and so much fun to play as well. Or if you just enjoyed the video, I would love it if you could leave a like or a comment down below anyway. Also, if you want to keep up with the Runeterra content, of course, you can always subscribe to the channel as well. And if you want to watch me playing some Legends of Runeterra as well, we play a lot of it over at my Twitch TV account, over at twitch.tv/Zenaton, playing decks, lots of Aphelios decks recently, in all honesty. Anyway, though, thank you all again for watching this video. I hope you all enjoyed it, and until I see you guys in the next one, bye!